Mark Isham, Nick Isham, and Ruby Ibarra are responsible for the music and songs on the hit drama series, The Cleaning Lady. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby. And I'll start off, Mark, by asking you, how do you approach using music to tell the story of The Cleaning Lady?
Well, you have a pretty unique environment here. You've got most American of all cities, perhaps Las Vegas. And then you have a Filipino culture coming to that city and fighting their way through not just the problems they encounter of American culture, but shall we say, the temptations and the largesse of Las Vegas. So it's a fascinating setup and background and everything for what eventually is really just a human story. At its heart, it's a story of a mother's love for her son and her mother's desire to keep a family together at all costs. And it really does stretch that phrase, at all costs. So you find a warmth, fundamentally. You find a great theme for the mother and the son. And then you try to find sounds that are as exotic as the cultures that the story is taking place in. And wrap it all up and then get it to tell the story.
Mm. Nick and Ruby, you two have helped by working on original songs for the series, which is pretty cool, because like sometimes shows just use songs that aren't original, and you've composed your own things. When you sit down to like write a song for the show, what sort of things are you considering and drawing in on, and how much do you know about have you come in late in the episode, or how much do you know when you're writing that song? We'll start with Ruby.
Thank you for that question, Matt. For me, it was a particularly unique experience because as a music artist, I've always just written for myself. And so with this special project, for the first time, I had to kind of think outside of the box and also think outside of my own experiences. And I wrote specifically to the script, and I was also kind of given the prompt and the responsibility to sort of speak from the main character, Tony's perspective in a lot of the lyrics. And I think I'm very grateful, and I was fortunate that a lot of the work was kind of done for me already, in the fact that they did provide me a script and certain descriptions for the specific scenes that they needed music for throughout the season. And so I kind of just based off my lyrics and kind of the perspectives off of the information that was provided. And, Nick and Mark both did such a wonderful job with the music production, where, again, I felt like my job was made easy for me because with the music already being so emotional, or, as Mark mentioned, giving off certain energies and kind of a distinct style and tempo that was relevant to the scenes in the show. I also just had the music guide me. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, really, I second what really both of them were saying. First of all, we have a great show that we're working on. And the writers and everybody who made the show did such a great job of communicating such a beautiful story that it was just our job to really amplify that emotion. So when we would get the scenes, when we would get the episodes beforehand, it was really just a matter of finding whatever scene would fit for an original song, and then really just bringing out, to the best of our ability, the emotion that scene would portray. Ruby did an amazing job, like she said, with the lyrics and portraying, the emotion of Tony, and speaking musically for her. And, I just did my best, and me and my dad worked together to do our best to musically portray that emotion. And then lyrically for me, same thing that, Ruby was saying, like on the choruses and the lyric side of my writing. For me, I kind of tried to put myself in those shoes, like what would it feel like, if I had someone that close to me who was gone, or who was this, or, like whatever that emotion was, like what would that feel like for me? And then writing from that perspective, as a prompt. So yeah, just honored to be a part of it, honestly.
But from the songs, is there a particular, and we can go through each of you for this, because even Mark, I'm sure you might be able to answer this too. A favorite line that you think encapsulates sort of the themes of the show or your own sort of experience or feelings about working on this show? Is there a line of lyrics from any of the songs that you write? I'll just throw it out to all of you because I don't know who's going to take longer to think about it.
Well, there's one that jumps to my mind right away, and it's right at the end. It's the last song of the last episode, and because it does sum up ultimately what Tony feels when ultimately threatened with potentially her greatest loss, and is lost without you. And I think the Ruby and Nick did such a beautiful job of grabbing that scene and just killing it, with that, because that's a very, they didn't spare any cinematic technique there. They've got the swirling camera and the whole thing, and Elodie does such a wonderful job of just her collapsing over this potential threat that she feels that she's facing now, and that one line just kills it.
Yeah. Nick or Ruby, do you have one?
For me, it's I just completely fell in love with a lot of the music that we made for the first season, of course. But I'd have to agree with Mark. I think "Lost Without You" is just it beautifully sums up, the entire season, but also kind of like the bread and butter and the meat of the story, which is the special relationship between Tony, the main character, and her son. And I think, whatever episode it was throughout the season, you get to see this relationship and this mother's love, undying love, and unconditional love, and her willing to do anything for her son. And I think we summed it up beautifully, both lyrically and musically, with "Lost Without You."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with them.
There we go.
That probably my favorite, and just for me, just emotionally, like I've got a really special relationship with my mom personally. so when I approached the chorus, like I said before, it was from the point of view of what would it be like maybe if I didn't have her, or like what would that tension be like. So just from an emotional point of view, for me, like that was one of the most dry, like kind of heart-wrenching songs that I could relate to the most. And just in terms of the story and just the collaboration with Ruby on the lyrics and how it fit into the show, I thought that was probably my favorite.
There you go. It's unanimous. The best line. Very good job. I also wanted to throw this question to all of you with, like, how does the collaborative process work with the three of you, and like what do you all sort of bring to each other in terms of making the music and the series stronger?
Well,
it's fun.
but it changed, I think, over the I don't know, 4 or 5 months that we worked on this. I mean, the pilot, you don't know what's happening at a pilot. You have a pilot director who's a very experienced, and they come in because that's what they do. They direct pilots, and they have this tremendous talent for taking something that doesn't exist in any form except on a piece of paper and putting it to life. And Michael Offer and I have worked quite a lot together. And I'm starting to write a suite of music that I feel represents the show. And he calls me up one day and says, "You never guess what I found. Go to this link. This gal is unbelievable. She's perfect." And of course, it was Ruby. And I said, "She is. She's fantastic." So, all right. So we got in touch, and Ruby sent me lyrics, and then I said, "Oh, you got to do them. Record them. Let me fool with them." And we started putting something together. And I was putting it to picture, and it was laying in really, really well. And then it needed to sort of go da-da. And I'd seen a commercial that Ruby had done where she had collaborated with a singer, where it went sort of da-da, and it was a great feeling, right? And I said, well, and we're in the middle of the pandemic here. Nobody's going anywhere. And I said, God, so I wrote a da-da chords. I said, but I need that thing. I need that thing. I said, wait a minute, Nick's across the way today. Maybe you just do this for me. And he came up with this gangbuster chorus. So that was the most disjointed. By the time we get to episode 10, like Nick says, we're sort of picking out the right spots in the thing for a film, for a song, and we're going to pitch them to the producers. And Nick and Ruby are just all over it on their own and pitching these great ideas, sometimes 2 or 3 different ideas for single scenes. And it was a great learning experience and evolving experience, I think, for a collaborative relationship.
Mm. Ruby, do you want to add anything to that about you from your perspective of coming in?
Absolutely. Yeah, to add to Mark's comment, it was, I think, interesting because, as Mark mentioned, when we first started working on the pilot, we were still in the middle of the pandemic. And so it was a bit of a challenge to be able to work collaboratively virtually, and not even, we didn't even get to set up Zoom meetings. We did a couple phone calls and text messages, but just not being able to be working in the same studio, I think, was a bit challenging at first. And I had no idea where kind of like the direction of the music would go. And I kind of felt like we were kind of just seeing what would stick initially, because as Mark mentioned, with the pilot episode, you don't really know yet where the story is going to go. And I think once we got to maybe 1 or 2 episodes in after the pilot, I think that we did kind of develop a sort of working environment and style where Mark and Nick did work collaboratively to see what scenes would probably be best suited for our voices and our music. And I think from there, it was kind of just easy coasting and seeing, how else can we kind of think more deeply about the characters and their experiences, and how can we add music to those experiences?
Nick?
Not much more to say than that. It was just a fun, creative, collaborative process. I mean, to work with 2 such talented, amazing people was just really an honor for me, on the music side with my dad, and then lyrically and storytelling wise with Ruby. It was, for me, so just super fun and such an honor to be part of.
Well, I'll ask you, Nick, with this show, there is real warmth and heart, as Mark alluded to earlier. There's also exciting crime stuff and glitzy Vegas glamour. Like, there's a whole lot of different tones in this show and different sort of gears that this show sort of hits. With approaching music and songwriting, Nick, for this series, how do you balance those tones or meet those different tones?
I think it just starts with communication and emotion, and capturing the emotion. I've been writing for quite a while, and I also have I call Mark Dad, so I've been around someone who's been doing this for quite a while. So I've learned a lot over the years from my dad in terms of those 2 things, in terms of communication and in terms of capturing emotion. And I've written a lot of my own stuff and really kind of and for other artists and for basically different projects over the years, kind of practicing at that and working on what does it mean to capture a gritty hip hop kind of emotion where she's fighting and we're walking the line, or Tightrope or Bloodstream, those kinds of songs, or what does it mean to slow things down and do a Lost Without You kind of thing, or the Runaway anthemic, whatever that is, that kind of emotion. So really just kind of taking the time to listen to who else has done it, in the past. That's set really good examples, and then just doing my, best version of ourselves, of that, of capturing those kinds of emotions. So,
Ruby, you spoke before how sort of in the past you'd largely made music for yourself, and now you're sort of having to make music for this show and for Tony's story and all that sort of stuff. What are you trying to serve with the music you're doing for this series that might be different to what you've had to serve before?
I think I just want to make sure that, I am doing the story justice, that whatever it is the writers and the directors had in mind, that I'm also cognizant of that this isn't going to be solely my perspective, but I want to make sure that what's at the forefront is what story are we trying to serve, and what is our audience, what emotions are we trying to convey with our audience through the story. And I think too, also recognizing that, with a show like this being so special, as Mark mentioned earlier, it's centered around a Filipino American and also Cambodian family. I think that understanding the historic value of that, it being such a momentous, moment for television, it was also something that I really didn't take lightly as a songwriter, working collaboratively with Nick and Mark, who are both legends in their right. And for me, it was just, a fun collaboration, but also understanding that this project was going to be historic, but also important for a lot of people watching it.
Mm. Well, speaking of Mark the Legend, we're an awards website at Gold Derby, and Mark, you've had some success on the awards circuit. You got an Oscar nomination and Grammy nomination, I think, for River Runs Through. Back in the 90s, you won an Emmy for the theme song to Easy Streets in 96. So you're no stranger to not just sort of the awards circuit, but also creating scores and pieces of work. What to you makes a sort of powerful score and a powerful sort of piece of music for whether it's television or film?
It's an interesting question, because I learned that sort of by teaching myself. I started off like Ruby. I was a record guy. I've made records for myself and released them on standard record labels and toured and did that whole thing. And then someone offered me the opportunity to score a picture because they heard some music I had written, and they said, well, that would be great in a film score. I didn't know that. They seemed to think so. And I learned that you're a team player. That's the first thing I think that is important to learn. And the people that, I so admire and respect Ruby even more when I hear her talk, she's obviously grasped that immediately. And I think that's why this relationship works so well, is because if you work in a film or television environment, you're on a team, and there's a captain to this team, and it's usually the showrunner or the director, and they have a vision, and they want you to supply your input to that vision. But if your vision is way off, or 180 degrees off, there's most likely going to be a problem. So the first thing I think you have to learn is that you're on the team, and you have to do a certain amount of duplication of how this story is being told, and what is expected of the music, and what is needed and wanted of the music. And then once you have that as a base, then yes, you create your own voice, your own input, your own creativity to achieve that. But that's a crucial difference than just writing a record of what you feel you want to say that year, And then I think Nick alluded to this also. It's really about communication. You really, when you're working on a film or television, you really realize that music is just a language of communication, just like the spoken word. And so you have to really just hone that ability to be just slightly tragic, not just sad, right? Or victorious, not just happy. And you learn what these different levels of emotion are, and what you and your art form, whether it be a lyric or a chord or a melody, what those shadings are, and how you can mold those and then put them at the right place at the right time. And if you can do that, then it's a breeze.
Well, that's great. And all the best of luck to all of you with the upcoming Emmy Awards in the Best Original Song category, but also the Best Original Music category. And people watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to make your own awards predictions and join our forums and watch other interviews with award contenders. Ruby, Nick, Mark, thank you so much for talking with us today. I really appreciate it.